Leaning buildings and sloping horizons are one of the simplest things to put right in Adobe Camera Raw. The settings we're looking for are referred to as geometry, and they're located within the crop settings. Now we have automatic, manual and guided options. Now coming down to the automatic settings first that we can see here, there's a little message which offers some advice. It says for best results apply lens corrections first. Well, let's go and do exactly that. At some time in the future I will do a dedicated video on the lens corrections which we'll find in the optics menu. So we need to go back to the main screen, which is the little icon right at the top right. And if we go down to optics, these are the two little boxes that need to be ticked. And if you look at the image, you can see it does make quite a difference. Now we can go back into our crop settings and look more closely at these automatic settings. So looking at these automatic options, one of the first options we have is A for automatic, and when I click that you can see that the horizon for this particular image has been corrected perfectly. So in this case all we would need to do is to hit the enter key and move on. Let me go back to take that off. This is the disable, and if we try the horizontal option here or the level option we get the same result. Let's try the uprights, and even with that we get the same result. So here all of these options, and this one is level and horizontal, all of these are giving us a satisfactory result. So as I said, what we would do here is hit the enter key and the image is nicely straight and ready for us to continue with any editing. Now as you can see here, I've returned to my original image and the horizon is sloping. Let's assume that one of these automatic geometry settings is not working too well, which you will experience from time to time. We can go up to the angle option at the top here, and this particular icon on the right says that it's a straighten tool. It will straighten the horizon automatically with a double click, but let's do this manually. First of all, I'm going to zoom into this image. I'm going to touch my Z key and click and drag, because the important part of this is that horizon along that edge. So if I go back to that straighten tool, I can click and draw a line, and what I'm effectively saying is to Photoshop, make that level, and as soon as I release, as you can see, I've got a good result there. There is an alternative, and that's to put your cursor into this little box and use the up and down arrow keys. Here I'm pressing and holding. But you can straighten horizons in this manner also, but of course we've got the image a little bit smaller than it needs to be now, so let me just drag that out. Now if you get a situation like this where you'd like to have a little more width here, then perhaps you can do a little bit of cropping. Let's take the lock off here so that I can adjust the uprights. So here I get the best of all worlds. I get the nice width for a seascape, and I've got a straight horizon. Hitting the enter key will allow us to move on. If we go back to those crop options once more and our straightening tool, of course we can use this option, which is a simple slider left and right to set the angle. But I don't find that's quite precise enough for most of the images I work on, so I tend to use either the cursor in the box, the straighten option, but more often than not the automatic settings do work perfectly okay. With this image opened up into Adobe Camera Raw and with the crop tool selected at the top right, we have a different set of problems. If we take a look at the automatic settings with the A, doesn't do a very good job, particularly with the columns left and right. It does seem to level up the steps in the foreground, but it doesn't do a great deal for the columns. and so to the next option and the next option. None of them are really suitable. In this instance, we turn to this option, which is the guided tool. When we select that, what I can do here is go onto the picture space. I'm going to pick an area of shadow that I can see clearly, and I'm going to click and draw. Nothing will happen when you put the first of these in. But then if I go over to the left hand side and do the same with this column, click and draw, there you can see a far better result. And the good things about these options is if we don't get it quite right, we can click and adjust them. So we've got an option to get it absolutely perfect. But here, on top of getting the uprights correct, if we look at the top of the picture, we can see the straight edge along the roof line there needs attention too. Well, we can put a third of these guided lines, and we can even move that around if we felt there was a need to do so. And we can do exactly the same on the steps below. So here we can set the horizontals top, bottom, and the verticals left and right. And as you can see, it gives us a superb result. Now the problem that I have with an image like this is that I've cropped the image rather too tight in camera. So when I set up the verticals for this image, it creates another problem. Let me demonstrate that by going to the automatic section, and you can see it straightened up those verticals quite nicely. But of course I lose the top of the building. Now we do have with these manual transformers the option via the offset Y, and I'll put my cursor in there and use the up and down arrows. We do have the ability to drop the image down, but to clear the top right corner, I then give myself a problem with the boat at the bottom left corner. So for the moment, I'm going to escape this and we'll come back and we'll try the guided option. So here I'm going to use the guided option once again, and I can click and drag down the right hand side of that building and then along the edge of the one on the left. And I think we're going to get quite a good result here, but it obviously gives us a slightly different problem to solve. I think the image now could come down very, very slightly. So if I put my cursor in the manual transformations offset Y, I should be able to nudge it downwards if I get the right direction. So it's a little bit further away from the top, and the boat is also pretty good. I think I can go down a bit more, but we've got an obvious problem to fix, and the only real way to fix that here is to go to our crop and to remove these areas. But of course it does bring the sky down a little bit. There are ways we can try to fix these in a more sophisticated way, but that's for a video on another day. Hit the enter key and we're ready to complete the editing. So whenever we use a wide angle lens and we're looking up at tall buildings like these, we're almost always going to get converging verticals. If we were standing more at the base of these images looking up, sometimes those converging verticals add power and impact to the image, but not here. So it's a good rule of thumb that if you feel you're going to have to make these changes in your image editor, then allow a bit of space around the edge, so when you straighten up those verticals, that you don't lose parts of the image you'd rather not lose. I'll see you next time.